been a tumultuous year in U.S. politics, from the daily diet of surprises coming out of the White House to the partisan tensions over a judge's confirmation to the Supreme Court.
Today we return to our Immigrant Town Hall for their impressions of the last 12 months in U.S. politics. Send us your thoughts, too, through Twitter and the YouTube chat.
Even the most hardened news junkies have had their work cut out to keep up with U.S. politics.
Whether the reports cover President Trump's family separation policy or his unconventional relations with traditional world allies, millions of Americans have grown used to 2 or 3 very different major political stories competing for their attention every day.
So today, we are dedicating a show to our panel of immigrants to the U.S. and their family members for their thoughts about the last year in politics. Joining us, we have Jeannie Nguyen. She's president of Voice of Vietnamese Americans, and she came to the U.S. as a refugee at the end of the Vietnamese War.
Joining us from Elk Ridge, Maryland, is Jesse Singh. He is founder of American Sikhs for Trump and is an entrepreneur who immigrated to the U.S. from India 30 years ago.
From Albuquerque, New Mexico, we have Amayra Campos Segura. She is a patient educator who worked as an oral surgeon in Mexico. She is joined by her husband, Anthony Segura, and he's a veteran and also a pistol instructor with the National Rifle Association.
In Minneapolis, Minnesota, we have AJ Siddiqui. He is an accountant and immigrant from Pakistan. He's joined by his daughter, Sana. She's studying public health policy at the University of Minnesota.
Saba Ahmed joins us from Portland, Oregon, and Saba is president of the Republican Muslim Coalition, and she immigrated to the United States from Pakistan.
Welcome back, everyone. So let's start with the hearings to decide whether to confirm Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. I know it sounds like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't. So if you remember, Kavanaugh angrily denied allegations that he assaulted women in the early 1980s. So here is what a member of our original town hall, Loida George, had to say about that.
So with the GOP in control of the House, Kavanaugh's confirmation, although disheartening, was almost inevitable. I watched pretty breathlessly while Kavanaugh testified, and I was simply astounded by what I observed. I did not see the tempered reserve of a judge. What I did see was, at the end of the day, this is politics, and I'm convinced that the votes that resulted in his confirmation were not votes of conviction. Rather, these were votes of political survival.
Yeah, I love that Jeannie just took off. She's been dying to talk about these confirmation hearings, political survival. Go ahead.
Well, just yesterday, President Trump has forced Sessions out, and Attorney General Sessions.
Yeah, so that was last week, actually.
Last week, yeah, was forced out, and we think of Brett Kavanaugh of a judge, but he was the one who had made it clear that he would suggest the court not investigating the sitting president, and that will leave President Trump a lot of free way to take care of, to feel that he's above the law. And I'm very concerned that President Trump, after seeing that Brett Kavanaugh in place, he's now feeling that he can manipulate or take care, make all the decision about the law of our country. Case in point with Sessions, and also that there was a lot of concern that Mr. Mueller will be fired, and he has already fired many FBIs, many of our law enforcement at the high level.
So Anthony says that's ridiculous. Because why is this ridiculous, Anthony?
It's typical liberal attitude. These people attack the president. They don't like the president from day one. They don't work with him. All they want to do is fight the president.
The president brought this on because the president actually had made a statement.
No,
he did. He said that if the House represented the people, if they asked for the president to present even his tax record, he would do the same and put the House, or the representatives in the House,
it's the same thing I said last year. The haters are going to hate.
These are not hate. These are values that we're fighting for.
That's exactly the way they've been. They have not gone.
It's President Trump who started it with his action.
So
he
thought he was above the law, and he thought he could do everything.
No,
and just see what happened.
That think they're above the laws.
No,
they think that
the president has to respect the law of the land.
Follow our laws.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
People, the liberals out there thinking they don't have to follow the laws. I see it in our state. We have We have a new mayor that was just elected. Now we have they can come in here. Sanctuary is the word. Why?
If President Trump said that he can stand in New York and shoot people and he can still be re-elected.
Issue here. Let me get back to the Justice Kavanaugh hearings.
Yeah, go ahead.
Justice Kavanaugh's nomination.
Sure.
It was a disgrace by the liberals and the Democrats, the way they tried to malign an innocent man. The Democrats, Senator Frankenstein, she has that letter she had it for months, and she never brought it out just to play a political game. That backfired.
So just to remind our international audience, this is a letter about the professor who said that when she was younger that she was assaulted.
Like President Trump said, she did
by
not
Brett
know where
Kavanaugh,
it happened,
who is now a Supreme Court
how
justice.
it happened,
Well,
but she knew that she liked beer.
That was the process that we need to have for our Supreme Court justice. That's only fair.
This is the position that I think that this is happening because the president is trying to do that. All the people that is with him is still in the position. The people that is not working or not agree with him just go out the position. And the fiscal of the nation need to be the first person in respect the law, even if he's the president that is in investigation. That's why he don't want it. He was pushing him for just left that position.
It's just like I said, the liberals do not follow the law anyway.
No.
We have laws in place. They don't follow the law. And it's going to get worse now
that rhetoric is divisive.
So
because
town
that's
hall,
how
take
we become
a break.
polarized in our nation.
Town hall,
getting attacked.
Anthony, hold tight for a moment. I hear what you're saying. Let me just play a little clip to take us back to these Kavanaugh hearings. So this was just quite recently. Have a listen, have a look.
Brett's assault on me drastically altered my life. For a very long time, I was too afraid and ashamed to tell anyone these details.
This grotesque and coordinated character assassination will dissuade competent and good people of all political persuasions from serving our country.
Democrats are willing to do anything and to hurt anyone to get their way, like they're doing with Judge Kavanaugh.
So AJ and Sana, this was late September and everybody was watching the Kavanaugh hearings. What's the fallout for you?
I mean, okay, here's the thing. This doesn't end or start with Brett Kavanaugh. There is a problem in this country that we need to address. We need to talk about comprehensive sex and consent education. We need to talk about how we are raising our children in this country. Brett Kavanaugh I was not surprised by the result. I was disheartened, of course, but I was not surprised. This speaks to a silencing of voices that we continue to do at the highest level of our courts. And as far as liberals being above the law or people being above the law, well, what if they're terrible law? And I'm not saying that I'm above the law, nor is anyone else, but in this country, there are terrible laws that suppress and quiet people and continue to perpetuate power dynamics that hurt the minority.
Tell me what the laws that do that.
Do you know why Kavanaugh was appointed?
Tell us, AJ.
The reason he was appointed is that in his writings in the past, he had talked about a big issue that is with Mr. Trump, that presidents should not be investigated and they should be allowed to do whatever they want to do because they are above the law.
Impeached, right? I remember that.
I agree. That's the point I made earlier, that the president cannot be above the law. I agree with that, and that's why the Supreme Court chair
the reason he was appointed.
It was so important, and that's why the whole internationally, everybody in Europe was very concerned that President Trump is leading the dictatorship coming back, and democracy is being damaged, affected in our country. just yesterday.
So, Jeannie, I want to pick up on that because you mentioned what this means as a whole for the judiciary. I wanted to bring in a few comments. So news, though, because as of November 8th, Thursday, Kavanaugh officially took his seat. So, it is timely that we're talking about him. Gooley on Twitter references that and says Dr. Blasey Ford has had to move 4 times and hire private security. I know that the moral arc of the universe is very, very long, but sometimes it is so hard to believe that it truly bends toward justice. That's just one person's comment. Here's another on YouTube who writes in that what this means now is that Republicans are filling up the judiciary and will continue. And then on top of that, also on Thursday, as Kavanaugh took his seat, we also got news that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had fallen and bruised 3 ribs. You can see this tweet from the former senator out of California, Barbara Boxer, who says all good thoughts to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Other people writing in, though, on the opposite side of that, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, hope you get better soon, but be assured we are ready to go on short notice. So you can see the debate right there, Saba. Where do you fall on what this means for the judiciary and then the country?
I think we'll see another conservative justice at the Supreme Court very soon. We do wish Justice Ginsburg all the best and getting healthy, but she is 85, and I think it may very well happen within the next few years. That
Saba, you went there. Oh my goodness. You're talking about the demise of a Supreme Court justice. Wow.
No, definitely not. I think that Justice Kavanaugh's hearings were dragged, and it was all political motivations. I don't think we accomplished much. I think it was a lot of the reason Democrats got the House is because of a lot of these political tactics. They used the Justice Kavanaugh hearings to instill fear, and basically, I think as was pointed out, a lot of the accusers are now being held responsible by the Justice Department for lying to the Senate Judiciary Committee about. Those were just political plays that some women were making. And yes, as sad as it is, what some women had to go through, I don't think nothing was proven. That's why he is the Supreme Court Justice. So we shouldn't make false allegations, and we should give the other side proper confirmation.
On the other side, I want to bring up that many women have taken it upon themselves to go out and fight it, because just recently, 19 African American women were elected into the judgeship in Texas. That was a good point. I'm hoping that the people will stand up for themselves.
I'm a lawyer. I would love to see more minorities. I would love to see more women on the bench. But I think at the same time, we shouldn't approve of any accuser that comes forward without any evidence. We can't delay or stop Supreme Court justices from getting confirmed.
All right, we have so much to talk about. Saba, thank you, Town Hall, for this. I'm going to push on a little bit and talk about President Trump's achievements in the last 12 months. Let's look at trade, first of all. Have a listen, have a look.
It's my great honor to announce that we have successfully completed negotiations on a brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA. So we have negotiated this new agreement based on the principle of fairness and reciprocity. To me, it's the most important word in trade, because we've been treated so unfairly by so many nations all over the world, and we're changing that.
So, Anthony, I think you're going to be best placed to reel off all of the achievements that President Trump has managed to nail down in the last 12 months, because you are very much a Trump supporter, but your missus sitting next to you, Myra, is not. So we can do compare and contrast. Anthony, you go first.
Well, he mentioned NAFTA. That's very important. We travel back and forth quite a bit to Mexico. As a matter of fact, we're in the process of buying another house in Chihuahua, Mexico. So it means going back and forth and dealing with a lot of this. The unemployment, it's at its lowest it's been for how many decades? That's important. When I bring that up, people always say no. It's because of what was left over from the previous administration. I don't believe that. I believe that President Trump had a lot to do with it, and I think if we continue in that. Supporting the president, but that's the main key. The liberals do not support the president. If they would get behind the president, there's a lot of things that can be done, and the NAFTA is just part of it.
Myra?
I don't think that NAFTA is a treaty between Canada, United States, and Mexico. I think there is a treaty between businessmen, the richest men in Mexico, and some people in the United States. There is a lot of people in the United States that don't going to be better with this treaty. You know, the small business, they are just closing because they can have competition with big companies. So that is not something good for the United States, unless for Mexico. And I can tell you, in Mexico, the corruption and the leaders that are doing all these business relations with the United States is not the people that are going to do something better for the country. And it's the same in the United States. They just talk about the big companies. We are talking about millionaires. We don't talk about the small business. That's going to disappear. All the small business disappear because they can have competition with big companies.
Well,
and
that's
that is
where the
it starts
reciprocity comes in.
No.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think that way.
That's where we disagree.
I agree with her because she said that it's just business between big businessmen and not for the people. The same action that President Trump took when withdraw the U.S. from TPP truly was devastating because it's against all the values for the people, and it also was against our national security, strategic security in the Asia Pacific as well. So those values that we promote, like climate change, promoting environment, promoting freedom of information, freedom of the internet, protecting the laborers, and no manipulation of the market. Those were in the TPP. And when President took us out of the TPP, he was just a transactional president. He didn't pay attention to the people. And that does create a lot of anxiety to the people in the area, especially like Vietnam. You can see that Vietnam now drifted to China because of that. So there was a lot of violations of human rights increase for the last 2 years since what President Trump had done. And all President Trump talked about to the leaders of Vietnam, a communist country, is the trade. He wanted Vietnam to buy 100 million of weapons whatsoever from the U.S., but he didn't care about the human rights. So there's a lot of violations of human rights happening, and we're very sad about that. I don't think President Trump put American values in the trade deals that he's talking about.
Okay. It's that human rights issue. I hear you there, Anthony, but I wanted to pick up on what Jeannie said about human rights, because that's a word that's been thrown around a lot online among our community. We got this on YouTube from Steve, who says that my vote during the midterm elections was influenced by the current administration's disregard for human rights and for the environment. Another person tweets into us, this is Petita, who says, what makes a nation a global player? It's the ability of its leadership to think more broadly beyond its borders and invest in the future. It's the realization that no country can operate in isolation, no matter how big its economy or military might, and the U.S. has lost that. Now, to give our global audience a reminder of what it is that these people are talking about, I wanted to share a little clip of something that happened earlier this year at the UN General Assembly. This is President Donald Trump.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
So, Sana, they're laughing. He didn't expect that, and then there's more laughter. What did you make of that moment? But what do you make of the U.S.'s standing in the rest of the world's eyes?
You know, we're talking about human rights. We're talking about the global world, and he hasn't achieved anything in there. In fact, what he's done is he has continued to bring about this hateful rhetoric, hateful suggestions and pushes towards divisive policies and laws and that will hurt people. And that goes beyond the United States. That goes to our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the things that are going on in Yemen and how we've contributed to that. And that goes, the influence of nationalists being elected across the world. We just saw a president in Brazil who has scary, scary politics, rather similar to President Trump that just got elected. So if there's anything he's achieved, is he's achieved this ideal, or sorry, lack of that thereof, of this nationalistic isolation and protectionist policies that are not going to help this country.
Anything?
Well, one of the things I want to say very quickly here, that you know that there were leaders of the world sitting in that room, the clip that you showed, and there was a laughter. We are laughing stock of the world today.
Exactly, because prior administrations.
This is
the thing is, we need to be strong. We need to be strong, and it needs to be coming from the top down. We are not at the verge, and I thought we were going to be with North Korea.
So Anthony,
to
be clear, this was at the United Nations General Assembly, which was the end of September. Those leaders were laughing at the way the president brought up the election results and how he won the election. That's the point where they started to laugh. Now, how do you interpret that?
Well, the world has always considered us before Trump, the last 8 years, just a weak nation. And I think now that after this last election and President Trump, we are now going to be considered a strong nation again. We need to be a strong nation. We need to have strong military, and that's the issues that President Trump are doing. So that's the way I see it.
What does a strong nation mean to you?
I believe that.
I was just going to say that they were laughing.
Saba saying you don't become a superpower by, Saba, finish up. By what?
They were laughing at Mr. Trump. They weren't laughing at previous presidents that signed those agreements of joint trade and all of those things.
And everybody's still laughing at Trump now.
Yeah, what is happening is this isolationist, and the United States have gone through these kinds of periods in the past in history where we have tried this isolationist behavior, and it has not worked. The world goes better when we all work together.
Anthony, I'm just curious, you have family outside of the US, you have family in Mexico. What do they make of President Trump? Be honest.
It's mixed.
Yes,
it's my wife's family. They're mixed.
No. In Mexico, we just don't accept the way that Trump is talking about Mexican, because for him, all the Hispanic people in the United States are Mexican. For him, we are criminals. We are people that is coming for make a problems and live to the Social Security in the United States, something that we know that is not true. And for other point, we know that in his point, like talking about the immigration, like now with all this caravan that is coming for Honduras, and they don't talk about that in Honduras, they have 2 military bases. And they are just living like they are other country. They are just help themselves. They don't do nothing for the country, the way they are using the land. So that is the point. For Trump, everything is money, it's a business. If he can take money for some place, he doesn't going to do nothing. He's not helping like a country. He's not a president that's going to be respected because he is somebody helpful, somebody that we can choose. It's just somebody that is trying to get more money.
But it starts from the very beginning. Again,
for me,
the haters hate.
So he's doing that because the immigration is a point because they don't have a good relation, commercial relation with other countries, like poor countries. It's like why her daughter is having all these companies in China because she's going to get workers over there that she can pay less money than here in the United States. Why they don't pay the same rate that they are paying here in the United States when they open a company
well,
in other countries?
You need to ask the Chinese one.
So Myra and Anthony, I hear that debate that happens clearly in your household there. Thank you for sharing it with us here. Thank you for sharing it. I wanted to end I wanted to just bring in one more person's voice to end here with Hen Mackey, a friend of the stream. She writes, the story of the U.S. has become a tale of 2 countries. Yet the nativism, racism, mass violence, like the Thousand Oaks shooting that we saw on Thursday, November 8th, is not new. What's new is the media and cultural bubbles that most Americans are in. The bubbles silo us off from one another, leading to a lack of empathy for others, and folks don't seem to care about having a social contract for other residents and citizens that don't look like them.
I am so looking forward to the next time that we get our Immigrant Town Hall together. I know it will be at a significant moment in the US political history, but for now I will say goodbye and thank you to Jesse and Sana and AJ and Amira and Anthony and Saba and also Jeannie and to you and to Loida who contributed via tape. Thanks for watching the stream. We'll see you online. Take care, everybody.